Another San Francisco progressive in the room, and I'd like to have her come up right now. Former Board of Supervisor Jane Kim from the 6th District. Jane Kim.
So, good evening, good afternoon, and I want to just take a moment to thank the current leadership of the Progressive Caucus for your amazing work. It is all volunteer hours, as you all know, and it takes a lot of time and energy to bring all of us together and to do all of this work every single year. So to Karen and the entire group, thank you. I also look forward to working with Susie, your Southern Region Coordinator, who will be joining the Senator Sanders 2020 for President campaign as co-leader.
I'll talk about that.
I just thought I would talk a little bit about why 2020 is going to be so important, not just for Democrats, but for progressive Democrats. When I was in college as a student activist, I often went to the Native American theme house where we held our meetings. And in the living room, when you walk in, there is a poster of the American flag. And I remember being really shocked the first time I see it. How could this symbol that represented and that was used to annihilate and decimate indigenous people be front and center above the fireplace at this house? But when you look below the flag, it had a statement, and it said, make something of it. Make something of it. And I realized in that moment that as activists, including myself, we often view ourselves as being against something. Fighting against the system, fighting against this hateful policy, fighting against misguided and inequitable processes. But in reality, we're actually the ones that are fighting for something. We're the ones that love this nation so much that we're not willing to give up on it. And we're the ones that want to do the most patriotic thing, which is to make this a nation for all of us. So it dawned upon me a few weeks ago that I'm actually almost as fearful of Trump losing as I am of Trump having another 4 years in the White House. And let me explain why. Trump has lit a fire and has illuminated the immense inequities and the painful ways that we have here in this country to a broader audience, and in many ways united us. None of the issues that are facing our country today are new. Homelessness was an issue, was a crisis on our streets long before Trump walked into the Oval Office. Mass evictions, disproportionately targeting our most vulnerable communities, seniors, African Americans, immigrants, women, has long been an issue before Trump walked into the Oval Office. And our immigration system was already in shambles long before Trump walked into the office. These policies that were literally beating and assaulting women, LGBTQ, people of color, poor people, were already happening. And even here in California, over the last 40 years, we built 23 state prisons and only 1 UC and 3 CSUs, determining the future of where we expected young Californians to end up in. So this condescending post-election analysis that poor Americans, ignited by fear, irrationally voted against their economic interests, I think is incredibly flawed. Over the last 4 years, 50% of Americans, and most of us in this room did not see our wages grow at all over the last 40 years. Meanwhile, the top 1% tripled, the top 0.1% went up 7-fold. In the meantime, the cost of everything has gone up. Food, healthcare, housing, transportation. I'm not saying that the voters who voted for Trump were right or wrong, good or bad, but I don't think they were irrational. They just didn't believe the status quo was going to improve their lives economically. And in fact, government has proven to be an ally and partner of the elite and the wealthy, instead of being a counterweight that we should be. So I believe that a lot of voters out in this country, whether they didn't vote for Trump or did, want the same thing, which is fundamental change. So 2020 can't just be about being Trump. It has to be about winning back the White House for our country. America, for the American people, by the American people. So, I will be working on a presidential campaign this upcoming March, but I don't know if I can talk about that here in the Progressive Caucus, but many others are holding signs and waving. This is one of the candidates that I believe will consider this very thing. It is not just about being Trump, but making sure we're changing the status quo for Americans across this country. And I will end, okay. Thank you, Karen. But I'm going to end with this. As a former community organizer, before I entered into the world of electoral politics, I always worried that being an elected official would somehow moderate me or make me more cynical. But I have to say that it has only made me see more clearly how systems hold back communities and push down the most vulnerable. And during this time, I have only come to believe more strongly in the potential and power of people-driven democratic institution. In fact, this is not a choice for most Americans. This is something that absolutely must happen. Now, some of the wealthiest in our country have been waging a war against us for decades. They spent billions of dollars discrediting governments and vilifying government. And I think we need to ask ourselves a question. Are the billionaires doing this for the good of the country?
Yep.
Or are the billionaires doing this to protect their profits by depressing and suppressing the vote? And then, after they do that, attacking labor unions who fight for the rightful pay of our workers, bottlenecking regulation, which protect consumers, our water, our air, and then lowering their taxes, thereby investing less in our country. By the way, paying our taxes is one of our patriotic duties here in this country. And so I'll say this, government is dysfunctional, but it should not be discarded or disregarded. We have to absolutely repair this important democratic institution. So we talk a lot about resistance, but I believe that it is persistence that is the refusal to stop believing, which is going to grow our faith and hope and ensure that in 2020 we win back this country. Thank you very much. Thank you, Karen.